My name is Victoria Lewis, and I represent Section 17, which is Kansas and Missouri chapters. When I am not volunteering with that, I actually have another job, and it is working in an urban school district in Kansas City. I work in Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools as a teacher leader. So I work with the adults, coaching teachers on improving instruction in their classrooms.
And I'm Abby Deal, and I'm one of the 2 alumni representatives on the National Council. And I went to school at Penn State and live in State College, Pennsylvania, and work at Penn State. And I was formerly a section coordinator for Section 2, which is the Mid-Atlantic area. So welcome. So I think that the purpose of this session is to talk about what you're going to do, what the purpose of your mortarboard chapter is on your campus. And so we're going to talk for a little bit, and then the other group will come in and talk about actual programming, about particular activities, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit. But we're here to kind of talk more about the philosophy of what your chapter is on your campus. And some of you may have a really good idea of that just from your orientation process or from your prior knowledge of your chapter, and some of you may have no idea at all, and that's okay. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think one term that we hear, and you heard it a couple of times already today, is serving the alma mater. And that's something that sort of is a term we talk a lot about at conference, and we haven't always done a really great idea giving you guys the skills to talk about that with your chapter. Mortarboard serving the alma mater is something that's really unique to Mortarboard, and it's more than just like the service projects you do in your community. It's really looking at ways to serve the alma mater. And so that's a big part of the theory that we're going to kind of break apart for you today. And we hopefully have some specific ideas that are coming a little bit later and kind of give you some of the history, behind it as well.
Do we want to give them a couple minutes to talk and pair up and talk about
I think so.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about this, so I work with middle schoolers. And so we kind of want to know what your knowledge is before we start something. That's what we do with our students in the classroom. We want to know, do you understand what we're talking about when we say this? So we're going to have you pair up and share, do a think, pair, share, if you will, use my middle school terms. And you're going to talk about with a neighbor what service to the alma mater looks like to you. Is there something that your chapter does at your university? Is there something that you know of another organization does? So thinking about what it is to serve your alma mater. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think, and then you will pair up and share. So think about it right now. What is service to the alma mater? All right. So you're going to pair up with someone. If you are sitting right next to people from your chapter, try to maybe mingle a little bit and sit with somebody else and talk about it. Do you know what it is? What does it look like? And what could it look like? We would love to hear some of the things that you talked about in your group, some of the ideas that you had for what service to the alma mater is, or what it looks like on your campus. Yeah.
At Illinois State, a lot of the groups on campus, not necessarily, I haven't seen Mortarboard do it before, but they donate something to the quad, which is the center of our campus. They'll make a benched area, a new garden, or there's a giving hand, statues and things that make the campus look better and more appealing to outsiders, and then they can see what's going on just by walking around.
Yeah, that's great. We'll get to some more examples of that from Mortarboard some places. Yeah.
Something our chapters talked about doing that they haven't succeeded at, but it would be great if we could, would be putting together a guidebook for freshmen to give out at orientation. Something I'd like to see happen.
Yes, and I happen to be very fond and familiar of a project like that. Kansas State University does If Only I Had Known, which is a book that every new freshman gets when they come for orientation. And so, we don't have the Mortarboard planner at K-State, but everybody gets this advice booklet right when they come. And UMKC, where I advise, we've started looking at it as well. And we definitely feel like that's definitely service to the alma mater because we're helping get freshmen ready and passing along some of that wisdom. So there's definitely people you could talk to about getting that started.
Who else?
At Clemson, there's a long line of traditions and a lot of alumni support, and our chapter our events help continue those traditions. For example, we host the Miss Clemson University pageant, and then that's like been in place for a while. So we just kind of keep those traditions going and take them as our events to make them bigger.
That's great, and that really builds to one of the points we'll make yesterday about, or in a little bit, make the point that it really needs to fit a need of the university. So that's great.
One thing at Hayes we do, we have a top professors dinner, so the members can nominate a professor they like, and we buy them a meal, them and a family member or whatever, and we have a big banquet for them. Recognize the professors.
And as a double service, I mean, it's a service to the alma mater recognizing outstanding professors. It's a great way to learn who's a friend of Mortarboard, who could either help with recruiting future members, might want to serve as an advisor, making those kind of connections with professors, especially if you're struggling with advisors.
And I like that all of you so far have talked about both projects and like physical things on your campus that both of which are kind of ongoing and will endure and keep up the visibility for your chapter. Did someone back there?
I think our school this year, I'm sitting on a committee, we're starting a leadership dinner on our campus, and it's pulling together all the presidents and an uprising leader of groups and organizations on our campus. And we have a new president at IUP coming in, so he's invited, and our board is invited. And I believe it's Winchester does it as well, and we got the idea from them, so we're starting that, and they want to do it every year now. And what it is there's 3 heads of 3 organizations come together and they plan it for the school.
I think one of the things you touched on in that is that, like, it's an idea you got from somewhere. Something that you use to serve your alma mater does not have to be this like brilliant new idea. Like, there are ideas that continue and last at universities because they are worth continuing. And so if you hear something like that at another school or chapter, that's definitely worth considering for your own school and chapter if it fits a need. We have some more examples that we'd love to share with you, and we're going to start with Vishal, who was a member at Purdue. You heard him speak briefly today about their really super special selections process, but they also have some other really cool traditions that are definitely fit the service to the alma mater.
Sure. So 2 examples. The first one on the physical, something that's everlasting, hopefully. There's something called Schliemann Plaza, basically a little garden area outside the student services offices that Mortarboard helps maintain. You know, we paid a little bit for just getting like a sculpture out there, and there's a little plaque saying Schliemann Plaza, sponsored by Mortarboard, and neat small example of something that we do. Bigger event is the Mortarboard Volleyball Invitational Tournament. So Purdue has a pretty decent volleyball team, and we invite, I think, 3 other schools, and it's just basically hosting a meet on campus. Great with partnership with the athletics office at Purdue, you know, getting athletes involved in things that we do with Mortarboard, and it's been a pretty successful event so far for us, last couple of decades now.
So this is a good opportunity for you to kind of think about ways that you can contribute to your campus. Every campus has its own culture, and so you should definitely take that into account and think if there's a way that you can kind of create your niche on your campus. Is there some particular way, is there a particular campus need, or is there a particular area of campus that could use some attention, or is there some way that your chapter can contribute and kind of create a niche, something that your chapter can be known for on your campus?
And I think especially in creating that niche, it has to meet a need. So if you decide that you want to host a volleyball tournament at your chapter, I mean, your chapter wants to host it at your campus, but you have no one who plays volleyball, obviously you're not going to have very much luck in sustaining that. And there are lots of people that you can talk to on campus about helping figure out where the need is that you need to meet. And so, for example, you might talk to like a dean of student life, or someone in residential services, new student services. Who else, Abby, would be great people to talk to?
Just anyone in student affairs, or talk with different faculty, or deans of colleges.
Your athletics department.
Athletics, sure.
So that would be like one of the, I see a question. So that would be like one of the first steps is making sure that this niche meets a need, or else it's not going to be very sustainable for your chapter. And then I think the second thing that is a mistake that I see a lot of presidents make when they get really excited about serving the alma mater and a new idea is that they decide that's what they're going to do without the collaboration of the group. And so if you want to serve the alma mater all by yourself, you're probably not going to be able to sustain that. So the project definitely has to be something that Mortar Board wants to own together to create that legacy that the next generation of Mortar Board members will want to do it as well.
I was just gonna say that, as like, I guess, I'm a president, I don't really know what's going on too much. But it sounds like these kind of events is more something that we should like, I think the vice president might be in charge of that stuff, but anyway, somebody that's maybe better at like marketing or something like that, we should kind of hand it over to them, like watch over, like be an overseer with that, you know?
Yeah.
We don't need to be in control of everything, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also, this is also a great idea for a committee. Like, I really believe strongly that the more members you have with a specific role and identity, the easier it is to get stuff done. So maybe you have a committee that's really looking at service to the alma mater. I know that a lot of chapters have a service committee, and I think they forget this component that, like, we get to serve a place that we've loved and been at for at least 2 or 3 years, and really focusing on that aspect as well, besides just service in the community.
And I'm glad that you mentioned marketing, because that's part of sort of the next thing that we'll talk about, which is in terms of once you've created your niche on campus, you need to think about how to promote your niche. And sometimes, you know, in higher education, we don't like to talk about marketing, but it really is important to think about how you're going to promote yourself and your chapter and Mortar Board on your campus. So that's sort of the next thing.
Yeah. How many of you joined Mortar Board and were selected, initiated, and then you found out that there was something that Mortar Board does on your campus that you had no idea it was Mortar Board that did it?
What were a couple of those things that you didn't know about before you were?
But that Mortar Board was doing on your campus, yeah.
With the roses at graduation, I didn't realize that it was Mortar Board.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do a don't tank every year, and all the proceeds go to some organization. This year they went to Up Till Dawn, but I had no idea Mortar Board did it. I thought it was a sorority fraternity thing.
We have a night ride on campus. It's a bus that picks people up at night, and we found out that the idea came from Mortar Board.
Okay.
Anything
I was
else?
gonna say, I didn't know what Mortar Board was until I applied.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think at Vanderbilt, there's like a lot of people that are in it that don't really do anything, so.
Yeah. Okay. So then, but then we also heard on the other side at the beginning. So not a lot of people had an experience where they know, like that it was sponsored, something on campus sponsored. What are some of those examples? Are there any others we didn't share earlier of something that was happening at your university that was sponsored by Mortar Board?
Things that everyone knows about on your campus. Anything?
I mean, last year, I was president, but before that, everybody knew that we have a Geek Week on our campus, and it's led by Mortar Board, and that's something that made me want to apply, so it's kind of cool to know that.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a fundraising event called Turkey for a Day. where-
Turkey for a day?
Yeah, we
Okay.
get a local costume shop to donate a turkey costume, and then we get professors who agree to it. We put out jars with their names and pictures, and then students put money in the jar of the professor that they want to see dress up as a turkey. And
Right.
the class before Thanksgiving, the professor throws some money dress as a turkey for the day, and everyone always looks forward to it and teases it. But I have no clue Mortar Board with that. Apparently they did.
So part of promoting your chapter on campus is to be visible, and so one of the things that you can consider doing, and I don't know how many of your chapters already do this or if you've already considered it, is to wear your Mortar Board pins on a particular day of the week, or to wear a certain kind of Mortar Board apparel if you have something that your chapter has. How many of your chapters do that, where a particular day of the week, maybe the day of the week that you're meeting, or you'll all wear your Mortar Board pins on campus?
Or even t-shirts.
I was just going to add a comment. My exec board, we talked about doing Mortar Board Monday, so this Monday I'm going to wear a t-shirt.
So that's a good idea.
The other thing is really, it goes back to when we talked about earlier today about the importance of membership selections. So when you identify who you're going to tap for the next group, doing that with a lot of visibility helps, so that people know that it's happening and that people are knowing who the new members are. Because there's a pretty good chance someone is in a class with someone who gets tapped or sees them always wearing their shirt on a Monday. And so you really want to make sure that members get this idea that this is part of the sense of community, is really being a visible part of Mortar Board. And the more excuses that you have to be in public doing something together with your mortarboard shirts, the better, like mortarboard shirts or pins, because people have to see things more than once to really start to get an idea. And so I really think if you're sponsoring something on campus, you should put your name on it a lot, because you want to continue to recruit the very best people on campus. So if you're sponsoring something awesome, then you should always put Mortarboard's name with it, because it's definitely helps people know this tradition.
Another thing you should consider is to make yourself easy to find on campus. So make sure that you have a website that people can locate that has useful information. So try to think back, wasn't that long ago when you were yourselves applying for Mortarboard. What kind of information did you want? And was it easy for you to find? And if not, think about what kinds of improvements you can make for the coming year so that in future students' experiences are a little more easy in terms of interacting with your chapter. You want to make it easy for people to locate your chapter and interact with you as a Mortarboard chapter.
And not just potential members when they're juniors, like starting much earlier so that people see Mortarboard's name for a few years and they know what's going on. When we talk about things like top professor dinner, there's also one at the University of Wyoming. Dave Whitman spoke earlier today, and he talks about he'll tell you all about their top professor dinner. And it is like a huge honor to be named one of the top professors at that university. A cousin of mine is a professor. He's been honored twice. It's like a big deal to him. And he is not a Mortarboard member, but he knows all about Mortarboard because of this honor that they have. It's a great example of building those partnerships with professors and faculty members at your university. Because they may have an idea for a need that they need help, they need service or help with a special project, but they also help recruit fantastic members to serve for the next year and keep growing that. How many of you, when you joined Mortarboard this year, there was an honorary member of faculty from your campus as well? Any honorary members?
Few.
Yeah. It's a great way to honor someone on campus. I work with the UMKC chapter, and it's not a chapter that's been very big for very long, but we honored 2 professors this year with honorary memberships. Oh my gosh, they were so honored and so excited. And so it's not like you have to have been a Mortarboard chapter for 80 years to honor someone. They were really excited. They brought their whole families. They gave little speeches. It was really awesome. And so that's 2 people who now really know about Mortarboard, who got to see all of the awesome new members and are, I think, definitely in our corner on campus. And it was really easy to do.
And they'll
Frankie?
talk about Mortarboard to their
Yeah.
to the people that they interact with then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Both people on our campus that we picked are huge on campus, and they have a lot of influence.
Yeah. I mean, it was so cool. They brought their families, like, to become honorary Mortarboard members. So, like, that's definitely a way to expand who knows about Mortarboard on campus, and it was just a fun honor for them, too, because they both deserved it.
And you can just kind of build that into your selection process, that when you're having your selection meeting or when you're talking about selection with your chapter, that you can just decide whom you want to make an honorary member right at that time, and that way it's all taken care of. It's just part of your membership process.
The next thing we wanted to talk about is holding events that promote scholarship, leadership, and service, which is definitely a theme that we've talked about. So beyond this theory, the idea of promoting service to the alma mater, but also like you should be involved in campus in scholarship, leadership, and service. One of the things that K-State always does that's involved with scholarship is hosts the statewide academic decathlon competition at Kansas State University. It sounds super nerdy. It's also super awesome. We get a lot of volunteers from the university. They know that Mortarboard is hosting it. So it's a service to the state and also a bunch of really cool high school kids as they get together and participate in that at the university. So it's definitely feeding a need there. And the other thing is, you don't have to do all of this stuff alone. I think ideas like Geek Weeks, where you might work with other honor societies, is a great idea because it's okay to put your name out there with other people. It would be a lot of work if you took on some of these big projects by yourself. And so sometimes it's great for Mortarboard to be partnering with someone else or leading with another organization to get something done. Especially if you are a smaller chapter at a big university, a partner organization may be a great idea.
And we've already talked, Victoria already mentioned how it's important to put your name on everything that you're involved with and to make people aware. There's nothing wrong with making people aware that you're the ones that are sponsoring something. And similar to that, when there's mortarboard week, use that week as a way to really promote yourself. It's right in the middle of what should be your membership selection process, so that's why it's then. It's a really good time for you to really promote mortarboard. So think early in the year about what you're going to do for mortarboard week, what kinds of activities in terms of scholarship, leadership, and service.
When I went to college, they like barely were using email, which is only a little bit of an exaggeration, but so like email, huge communication thing. How many of you have signatures at the bottom of your email when you send an email on campus? I see them more and more that have like people's name, their major, and then a couple of organizations that they're a part of. Mortarboard should be included, and I would encourage your members to put mortarboard as one of their lists. On their list, because we see those all the time, and it's kind of a fun way. I always think it's kind of fun when I get an email from a student to see what else they're involved in, and get to kind of connect with some of their other organizations. So encourage your members to include mortarboard as something that they're doing and something they're a part of.
Another point would be, and Megan Stevens, I know she talked about this in the membership session earlier, about making membership recruitment a year-long process, that it's not just when you're promoting membership, but that everything you do is promoting membership in your organization. And so I don't want to talk too much about it because I know that Megan already covered it and talked about the importance of it, but just think about membership recruitment being a year-long activity, and that everything your chapter is doing on campus is helping, hopefully, to recruit members and making other people want to be part of your organization. So think about how you're helping other people on your campus not only to be aware of your organization, but to want to be involved in the activities that you're doing.
And I think one of the ideas that I love, that I really wish had been my idea, was I knew a chapter that they had a partner organization with incoming freshmen. So they had a freshman honorary that they like started, and then they helped recruit the kids, select the members, and then they were like a buddy organization for the entire year. So we're talking about freshmen working with seniors, and the same types of activities we see when students recognize outstanding sophomores. We started at Kansas State, and when we invited our top professors to like a professor's tea, we let them pick a junior to come with them. So not only did we have administration and faculty from all over campus coming, but they each brought a junior who was often likely going to be an awesome mortarboard member the next year. So that's talking about recruitment being early, recruitment being a year-long event, as you always are promoting mortarboard on campus. The next thing we want to talk about, Abby is extremely skilled and knows a lot about. So this next thing, thinking about alumni. And I know that's a challenge for a lot of chapters, especially depending on how big your chapter is or how long you've been a chapter. But we think this size of group, these size of schools, should actually have some strong resources for alumni that a lot of chapters that are smaller might not have.
Definitely, and I think about alumni all day because that's what I do like for my job at Penn State. So I think about alumni all the time, and also I have the kind of fortunate position of there's a huge alumni chapter in State College, Pennsylvania. And they're very active, and they've done a lot to support the local chapter. And I think some chapters are much better at engaging those alumni than others. How many of you have an alumni chapter in your area that you know of? No, yeah, there's got to be more. I know there's more. Okay.
There's one in Denver.
So even if you don't have a local chapter, I'm sure that you have alumni in your area, people who are working on your campus, people who live in the city or town that your chapter is located in. And if you don't know, you can find out by contacting the national office, and they'll be happy to tell you who is living in your area. And it's really a great way to gain support and visibility for your chapter, and it's also a way to just kind of keep people involved in mortarboard. What are some of the points I want to make? If you invite alumni to your events, that can be a really great way to kind of gain support for your events and visibility, whether they're people who are on your campus already or people who live in the local area. Alumni love to be invited to events. Invite them to initiation. At Penn State, we invite our alumni to almost everything, and they're a particularly strong presence at initiation. They help with parts of the script. a few years ago, we needed caps and gowns for the initiation ceremony, and the alumni put out a drive and donated the money for all of the caps and gowns. So it can be a way for your chapter to get some financial support as well. I know it's not always something that people are comfortable with in terms of asking alumni for money, but alumni do sometimes have money, and they do want to support their chapter. And if you have something tangible and meaningful that you want to ask for, that your chapter needs, that may be a source of obtaining that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, something that you need, or even a service to the alma mater that you have. So like if you're going to raise money to put something on campus, I think there are probably a lot of mortarboard alums who would like to be a part of making that lasting mark on your campus. And we do encourage you to work with Mortarboard, the national office, and especially the MBAA as they get their feet on the ground and off and running in terms of helping you find alumni. Because I went to Kansas State University, we worked directly with the Alumni Association as well. Members of the Alumni Association at K-State marked what organizations they were part of, Greek life, on-campus activities, and that was another great way for us to connect with our alums with an alumni newsletter, tailgates in the fall at football games, fundraisers for service projects, and so on.
And many of the alumni, at least who live in the area of the Penn State campus, are not Penn State mortarboards. They're from all over the place. We have alumni from, probably 15 or 20 different mortarboard chapters, but they still support mortarboard and the ideals of mortarboard. And many of them either work at the university or have a spouse who works at the university. So they're just as willing to support the Penn State chapter as they are their own chapter, because they have an investment in it.
Yeah, I think definitely using both types of searches to find mortarboard members is a great idea, because you never know who's working on campus. I had to miss a meeting in Kansas City to come here on Thursday. Told the person in charge, I said, I'm so sorry I have to miss it. I'll be at mortarboard conference. And she's like, oh, I was a mortarboarder. I get it. So like, you just never know where you're going to meet somebody and they'll be able to, make that connection with you and be interested in what you're doing.
I was going to add one quick point. A lot of times chapters, food is a big draw to get chapter members to do stuff. One of our, at Purdue, alumni advisors, she always brought cookies to meetings. Simple gesture, but it got everyone to come, because like, oh, Thursday, Betsy's coming, she's bringing cookies. Everyone showed up. Simple story, but at the same time, valuable one.
I mean, and also think big. Maybe in 5 years you are that alumni person who starts at your chapter and hosts the salad supper that's on the Thursday before selections. Like, it could be you that takes that long range view of what you can do for your chapter, and being involved as an alum as well. So it is something for you to think about this year, making those connections, and then also what you do next year when you are an alum and you need to, continue to support mortarboard and the ideas.
Or invite an alum to one of your meetings. Invite alumni to one of your meetings to talk about, their mortarboard experience. There's lots of different ways, if you think about it a little bit, that you can get alumni involved. And I think it'll have a lot of benefits down the road as well, not just that one engagement.
So we just really want to reiterate what we tell you over and over again, because we think it's really important that being a part of mortarboard is a privilege. And I think one thing that speaks to me when I see people that have been involved with mortarboard for like 40 or 50 years is I'm like, this means a lot to a lot of people. And I think it's pretty cool that I get to be a part of it as well. I remember that really vividly, coming as a delegate, and I think that's why I continue to want to be involved, is like being like, oh my gosh, this is like a real thing that people do all over, and not just at my university, but like everywhere. And I still feel that way even now, which is totally nerdy and totally true.
Yeah, and it's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes. We would love to answer questions and maybe specific things that you think would be for the good of the group, and wondering about this at your university and the large size, what types of struggles you have planning for these things.
Yeah. So I was amazed I was in the big group, because whenever I went for initiation, there was like 20 people there, like total. So that tells me like people at Vanderbilt, they're like involved in a lot of different stuff, and I am too, but like if you're not showing up, you really shouldn't be in it. Like, that's not me. So like, what do y'all do? Are there like, you have to attend, like, you can only miss like 2 sessions, or do groups have rules like that, or like, how do y'all kind of overdo that kind of?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and one we'll talk about a little bit more in the membership one this afternoon. So get excited, because you're going to see me make a fool of myself when we're talking about this. But I do think that it is a lot about doing stuff that's important. And so I think a sort of a theme of like finding activities that are needed on your campus, because really by the time you are a senior, if the only project your chapter is doing is picking up trash at the side of the road, I would want to skip that too, because it's not worth my time. And so I think finding something where you can serve with other mortarboarders that you respect and want to get something done for the university makes a huge difference.
And I think getting all of your chapter members involved is really important. I think some presidents feel like because they're the president, they have to do everything themselves. And I think it's really important, and I just said in my section meeting yesterday, it's really important that you give everyone sort of a stake in the organization, that you're seeking input from everyone, and that you're having expectations of everyone as well, not just of the officers for whatever their specific roles are, which are listed in your officer and advisor handbook, which they should familiarize themselves with, but also all of your members having an expectation of attending and participating. If you don't have a participation policy for your chapter, you should definitely have one, and there are lots of examples that the national office can give you, so you don't have to create your own participation policy. But I think, as Victoria said, the most important thing is having activities that people want to participate in, because the participation policy is, I don't want to say it's a negative thing, but it's a,
It can be a little bit of like
it's
a
more
stick
of the stick. I
sometimes.
was just
Yeah.
going to say that.
Oh, yeah.
It's more of the stick instead of the carrot.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's why we're paired up.
That's good.
And you want to have sort of a combination of approaches where people know that there are specific written expectations, but also like, yay, I want to be involved anyway.
I think two things to speak on that. One is a specific example from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where I get to advise. It's totally cool. No secret to these boys, they both know our story, but within the last 3 years, we were at a point where there were 6 members who participated actively at meetings, 6. And we selected 30 members last spring, and we turned people away. Like, we were like, well, we get to be picky, so we're gonna take 30 awesome new members. So I want to give you a little bit of hope that you can get people to join in with you, and you can make a huge difference in a really short amount of time. Like, because it was the way it was when you came in doesn't mean it is the way when you leave it, and it actually is pretty easy to turn that around if you get some people on board with you. And then I think the other thing that speaks, and I like to tell the story all of the time because I think it was like a pivotal moment in my life where I realized how leadership actually works, and it speaks to everybody needs to be involved in it. And I was president at K-State. We were doing great. I had all of these ideas after I went to conference. I came back with a t-shirt design even. I was ready to go. I had this t-shirt design. I showed it to everybody. I sent the sheet around so everybody could sign up for their names and with what size they wanted. And a woman who I really respect, Emily, came up to me after the meeting and said, I think that maybe you should have let somebody else do that. I feel like a little bit like you're doing everything and there are other people who want to do stuff. Dude, I was floored because this person that I totally respect called me out on the fact that I wasn't sharing the leadership, and that totally changed how I did things at my chapter, and I think that changes how I work like from here on out, because if you try to do it by yourself, it will not work. Even with a great group, if you try to do it by yourself, it's not going to work. So it's important for it to be a group activity.
I can just build on what Victoria just said. 2 key things. Delegation, right? To make sure as presidents that, as Victoria just said, don't take everything on. Right, it's not good for you yourself, it's not good for your chapter. More importantly, just going back to something else that we discussed earlier, it's all about collaboration. So let's suppose you have the Greek Council President and Student Government President on your chapter. Partner up with these organizations to put an event to get on, right? That's part of their other responsibilities. It helps them participate in a motorboard sponsored event, and you made life easier for all 3 organizations, right? With having more participation. So look for opportunities to fertilize and basically just get ideas together across the board. And that's where leverage your chapter. Like if you're one athlete on there, use that person to make the connection with the athletics department and things like that. So use that network.
Yeah, you should totally know what everybody's doing. Like if you only know them from mortarboard, like that's gonna not help you build any of the connections. Like you should know that someone is also president of the Music Teachers of America chapter at your school. Like you should know those things and use that to sort of build connections in your campus.
I think we're out of time, but
Let's do one more question. Yeah.
This is about meetings. Is the Roberts Rules of Order, is that required for meetings? You don't have to.
I think we don't use it at either of the chapters that I've worked with, but I know some chapters that are like bigger or have that tradition have. We do try to like have motions and people vote, things like that, to avoid that president making all the decisions.
Yeah, I think it's important if you're going to vote on something to do it sort of by the book, but I don't know a lot of chapters that run their meetings that way. As long as you have an organization and an agenda and, you know.
You definitely want to make sure the discussion is moderated well, but beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very
Great.
much for your time today. We enjoyed spending a little time together.
Thanks.